I thought Christmas would finally be the year I claimed my own joy. But when I overheard my parents whispering that they'd cancel my long-awaited trip just to chain me to babysitting duties, something inside me snapped. They saw me as their permanent unpaid nanny, the reliable daughter with no life of her own. What they didn't know was that I was about to flip the script in a way none of them saw coming. This year, they'd learn exactly what happens when you take someone's kindness for weakness. My name is Claire Morrison, and at 34 years old, I've spent more time being everyone's safety net than living my own life. From my corner office at Summit View Corporate Services in downtown Portland, I coordinate million-dollar conferences and international festivals, managing chaos with the precision of a Swiss watch. Ironic, isn't it? At work, executives respect my boundaries and compensate me handsomely for my expertise. At home, I'm expected to provide the same services for free, with a smile. The rain drumming against my office window this December morning seemed to echo the pattern of my life, constant, predictable, and somehow always leaving me drenched. I stared at my computer screen, finalizing details for a tech summit in February, but my mind kept drifting to the family group chat lighting up my phone. Rebecca, my older sister, had already sent 12 messages about her boys' Christmas wish lists. Ethan, my younger brother, added photos of his 3 kids in their school holiday pageant, followed immediately by hints about needing help with their gifts. It wasn't always like this. Before Dad died of a sudden heart attack 7 years ago, there was balance in our family. He'd been the buffer, the one who'd gently remind Mom that I had my own life to live. "Let Claire breathe, Diana," he'd say when Mom would start her guilt trips about family obligations. But when we lost him, something fundamental shifted. Mom's grief transformed into dependence, and somehow, I became the designated caretaker of everyone's needs. Rebecca has 2 boys, Mason, 8, and Tyler, 6, both diagnosed with ADHD and the energy levels of nuclear reactors. Her husband, Brad, treats parenting like a spectator sport, preferring his man cave to actual involvement. Ethan's situation is even more chaotic with 3 kids under 7, twins Emma and Ella, who just turned 5, and baby James, who's 2. His wife, Stephanie, discovered wine mom culture and never looked back, leaving the actual parenting to whoever's available. Guess who's always available? The expectation settled on me so gradually I barely noticed it happening. First, it was just this once, babysitting during Mom's grief support meetings. Then it became every family gathering where I'd arrive to cook, serve, and supervise children while everyone else socialized. Birthday parties, anniversaries, random Tuesday nights when Rebecca had spin class or Ethan wanted date night, I was the automatic solution. No one asked anymore. They just assumed. "Claire doesn't have kids of her own," Mom would say, as if that meant I didn't have a life. "She has the time." The truth is, I don't have kids because I've been too busy raising everyone else's. Every relationship I've tried to maintain crumbled under the weight of canceled dates and interrupted intimate moments. "Family emergency," I'd text, rushing off to handle another crisis that usually amounted to free babysitting disguised as obligation. My apartment in the Pearl District, with its exposed brick walls and mountain views, became my sanctuary. I'd furnished it exactly how I wanted: modern lines, calm colors, absolutely no toys in sight. It was the one space where I could exist as just Claire, not Claire the perpetual aunt-daughter-sister caregiver. But even there, the weight of expectation followed me. Mom had a key for emergencies, though her definition of emergency included needing someone to vent to at 11:30 p.m. about her book club drama. My phone buzzed again. "Mom, this time, don't forget to pick up the special wrapping paper. You know how the kids love when their gifts match." As if I'd become the North Pole's procurement department. Last year, I spent over $2,000 on Christmas, between gifts, decorations, food, and those matching pajamas Mom insisted everyone needed. The "thank you, Rebecca," commenting that the turkey was a bit dry. Looking at my reflection in the office window, I barely recognized myself anymore. The ambitious young woman who'd graduated summa cum laude from Portland State had morphed into this exhausted people-pleaser. My brown hair, usually styled professionally, hung limp from too many late nights preparing for other people's celebrations. The designer bags under my eyes weren't from Nordstrom. They were earned through years of putting everyone else first. But something was stirring inside me, a rebellion I'd been suppressing for too long. Maybe it was turning 34 last month and realizing I'd spent my entire 30s in service to others. Maybe it was Ryan, the photographer I'd met at a work event, who looked at me like I was fascinating, not just useful. Or maybe it was simply exhaustion finally overwhelming obligation. Whatever it was. I knew this Christmas would be different. I just didn't know yet how different it would be. The Santa Fe brochures spread across my coffee table looked like promises of another life. Adobe buildings bathed in golden light, art galleries tucked into historic plazas, and that endless turquoise sky that seemed to stretch beyond any obligation. I'd been planning this trip for 6 months, squirreling away overtime pay and meticulously researching every detail. For once, I wasn't organizing someone else's dream. This was mine. Ryan had suggested it during one of our late-night conversations at his loft. "You need to see the light there," he'd said, his photographer's eye gleaming with excitement. "December in Santa Fe is magical. The way sunset hits those mountains. It'll change how you see everything." He wasn't just talking about landscapes, and we both knew it. This trip represented something bigger, the possibility of me choosing something purely for joy. I'd found the perfect boutique hotel, La Posada de Santa Fe, with its spa and courtyard gardens. The reservation confirmation email had felt like a victory flag. 5 nights, arriving December 23rd, returning the 28th. I'd even splurged on first-class flights, something I'd never done for myself. The itinerary was a careful balance of Ryan's photography destinations and my craving for peace: morning hikes in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, afternoons wandering Canyon Road's galleries, evenings at restaurants where no one would ask me to cut anyone's food or negotiate custody of the last breadstick. The conversation with Mom about missing Christmas had gone better than expected. I'd caught her in early November, after her Wednesday wine with the neighbors. "That sounds nice for you, dear," she'd said, distracted by whatever Judge Judy rerun was playing. "We'll miss you, but I suppose you deserve a little break." I should have known it was too easy. Mom never let go of anything without a fight, especially not her carefully orchestrated vision of perfect family holidays. Ryan and I had grown closer over the past 4 months in ways that felt both thrilling and terrifying. He saw me, not the event coordinator, not the reliable aunt, just Claire. On our 3rd date, when I'd tried to cancel because Rebecca needed an emergency sitter, he'd shown up at my apartment with takeout and said, "Your sister's emergency doesn't mean you stop existing." No one had ever said that to me before. He'd already been to Santa Fe multiple times for shoots, and his enthusiasm was infectious. "There's this place, Meow Wolf. That'll blow your mind," he'd told me, scrolling through his photos. "And the food scene. You haven't lived until you've had Christmas Eve dinner at Geronimo. I already made reservations." The way he said "I" so naturally, like we were already a unit, made my chest tight with possibility. I'd been strategic about the trip preparations, knowing my family's tendency to sabotage any plans that didn't revolve around them. The tickets were electronic, printed copies hidden in my office desk. The hotel confirmation was saved only in a separate email account they didn't know about. I'd even arranged for my mail to be held, remembering how Rebecca once accidentally opened a credit card statement that revealed a spa weekend I'd planned, leading to a guilt avalanche about abandoning family. The investment in this trip went beyond money. I'd bought new clothes, not the practical cardigans and mom jeans I wore to family functions, but flowing dresses and soft sweaters that made me feel like someone who belonged in art galleries. A leather jacket that Ryan had seen me admiring, purchased with the bonus I'd earned from successfully managing the Pacific Northwest Tourism Summit. Hiking boots that had never touched a playground or been vomited on by a toddler. My passport sat next to the tickets. even though I didn't need it for domestic travel. I liked looking at it, remembering the woman who'd once dreamed of international adventures before family obligations shrunk her world to a triangle between my apartment, Mom's house, and whichever sibling needed emergency childcare. Santa Fe might not be Paris or Tokyo, but it was a start. It was choosing myself. "You seem different lately," my assistant Jennifer had mentioned the week before. "Lighter, somehow. Like you're looking forward to something." I'd smiled, keeping my secret close. The anticipation was almost as delicious as the trip itself would be. Every time my phone rang with another family demand, I'd touch the printed itinerary in my pocket like a talisman. 5 more days. 4 more days. 3. What I didn't know was that while I was counting down to freedom, my family was having their own conversations about my carefully guarded plans. The collision between my dreams and their expectations was about to create an explosion that would reshape every relationship I had. But in that moment, arranging the brochures into a perfect fan on my coffee table, I still believed I could have both, the family who demanded everything and the life I desperately wanted to claim. The morning of December 20th started like any other. I'd stopped by Mom's house before work to drop off the specialty coffee she liked from the boutique roaster near my office. The familiar scent of her lavender potpourri mixed with something burning, probably toast. As Mom had developed a habit of wandering away from the toaster while it was running, I let myself in with my key, calling out my arrival as I headed toward the kitchen to investigate. That's when I heard them. The voices were coming from the dining room, low and conspiratorial. Mom's, Rebecca's, and Ethan's, with Stephanie's occasional interjection. I froze in the hallway, something in their tone making my skin prickle with unease. Through the partially open French doors, I could see them huddled around Mom's good China coffee service, the one she only brought out for serious family discussions. "We need to be strategic about this," Rebecca was saying, her voice carrying that sanctimonious tone she used when organizing other people's lives. "If we wait until the last minute, she won't have time to argue." "But what if she just refuses?" Ethan asked. "You know how stubborn Claire can be when she sets her mind on something." Mom's laugh was bitter, a sound I'd rarely heard from her. "She won't refuse. Not if I play it right. I'll mention how this is the first Christmas without her father's traditions, how I need all my children together. The guilt will do the rest." My stomach twisted, but I stayed frozen, needing to hear more. "The key," Mom continued, "is making her think it's her idea. I'll start feeling unwell on the 22nd. Nothing serious, just enough to worry her." Then Rebecca, "You'll call about an emergency with Brad's family visiting unexpectedly." "And I'll say the nanny canceled," Ethan added, warming to the plan. "Between the 3 of us, she'll crack. She always does." Stephanie's wine-rough voice piped up. "Thank God. I cannot handle another Christmas supervising those kids. They're exhausting. At least Claire has the patience for it." "Exactly," Rebecca agreed. "And honestly, what does she need a vacation for anyway? It's not like she has real responsibilities. No husband, no kids, just that job where she basically plans parties. She can take a trip any time." The words hit like physical blows, but what came next from Mom was worse. "Claire doesn't understand what real exhaustion is," she said, stirring her coffee with the silver spoon from her wedding set. "She thinks she's tired from work. Try raising 3 children. Try losing your husband. She lives in that expensive apartment, spending money on herself while we're all struggling with real families. The least she can do is help out when we need her." "But Mom," Ethan said, and for a moment I thought he might defend me. "What about that photographer guy she's been seeing?" Mom snorted. "Please, another one of Claire's phases. She goes through men like she goes through those expensive handbags. This Ryan person will be gone by New Year's. Mark my words. And then she'll come crying to me about being alone. As always. Besides," Rebecca added, "it's perfect timing. Brad and I desperately need a night to ourselves. Do you know how long it's been since we've had adult conversation at Christmas? Claire can handle all 5 kids. She's good at it, I'll give her that. almost like she was meant to be everyone's permanent babysitter. They all laughed, actually laughed, as if my life was a comedy sketch written for their amusement. The trip cancellation won't even cost her much, Mom went on. I looked it up. Most airlines give credit for future travel. She can go to Santa Fe whenever, but Christmas only happens once a year, and family comes first. She needs to remember that. What if she already suspects something? Stephanie asked. She doesn't, Mom said confidently. Claire always thinks the best of everyone. It's her weakness, really. Too trusting, too eager to please. Even after all these years, she still believes we appreciate her. She doesn't realize that this is simply her role in the family. Some people are meant to be mothers, wives. Claire was meant to be support staff. Support staff. The words echoed in my head as I backed away from the door, my hand over my mouth to muffle any sound. My mother, the woman I'd dropped everything for after Dad died, whose grief I'd cushioned at the expense of my own, saw me as support staff. I made it to the hallway bathroom, closing the door silently before sinking onto the closed toilet lid. My hands were shaking. 7 years of sacrifices, canceled plans, abandoned relationships, and exhausted nights flashed through my mind. Every birthday party where I'd been the one cleaning up. Every holiday where I'd cooked for 12 hours straight. Every emergency that pulled me from my own life. And they were laughing about it, planning to manipulate me with surgical precision, knowing exactly which buttons to push. The fake illness, the manufactured emergencies, the guilt about Dad. They'd mapped out my emotional pressure points like generals planning an invasion. The worst part was their confidence. They knew I'd cave. History had taught them that Claire always caved. I stood up, catching my reflection in Mom's mirror with its gaudy gold frame. My face was pale, but my eyes, there was something different there. Not hurt anymore, but something harder, colder. They wanted to take my Christmas trip fine, but this time, their plan would backfire in ways they couldn't imagine. I slipped out of the house as quietly as I'd entered, leaving the expensive coffee on the kitchen counter with a cheerful note. For my favorite family can't wait for Christmas love, Claire. If they wanted to play games, I'd show them I'd learned from the best. Sitting in my car outside Mom's house, I couldn't stop the memories from flooding back. Each one felt like evidence in a case I'd been too blind to see. The pattern had been there all along, written in missed opportunities and sacrificed dreams. There was my 30th birthday, the milestone I'd wanted to celebrate with a trip to New York. I'd saved for months, planned every detail down to restaurant reservations and Broadway tickets. 2 days before departure, Rebecca called sobbing. Brad had supposedly thrown out his back, and she needed help with the boys for just the weekend. That weekend turned into 10 days. I never made it to New York. The birthday cake I ate was a leftover slice from Mason's soccer team party, alone in my apartment at 11:45 p.m., still wearing the shirt stained with Tyler's grape juice. Or the promotion I'd almost lost 3 years ago. The senior management position required attending a conference in Chicago, a crucial networking opportunity. The night before my flight, Ethan showed up at my door with all 3 kids. Stephanie had gone to her mother's after a fight, and he didn't know what to do. Could I just watch them while he sorted things out? I'd called my boss at 5 a.m., fabricating food poisoning. Missed the conference, missed the initial promotion. It took another year of proving myself to get back in consideration. The relationship casualties were almost too numerous to count. Marcus, the architect who'd understood my ambition until family emergencies consistently trumped our plans. David, the teacher who'd pointed out, gently, then firmly, that I seemed more married to my siblings' needs than interested in building something with him. James, who'd lasted 8 months before the Christmas incident 2 years ago, when I'd left our romantic dinner because Mom called claiming she smelled gas. There was no gas leak. She was lonely and wanted company while watching holiday movies. Each memory carried its own weight of justification. Dad had just died. They needed me. The kids were young. They needed stability. Mom was struggling. She needed support. Always their needs, never mine. I'd become the family shock absorber, cushioning everyone else's life while my own grew smaller and smaller. The financial exploitation hurt almost as much as the emotional manipulation. I calculated once, in a fit of insomnia, how much I'd spent on family obligations. Between emergency childcare that required me to miss work, gifts that were expected to be elaborate because Claire has that good job, and constantly covering restaurant bills because Claire doesn't have the expenses we do, it totaled over $40,000 in 5 years. Meanwhile, Rebecca drove a new Lexus and Ethan had just renovated his kitchen. "You're so lucky," Stephanie had said at Thanksgiving, gesturing at my designer handbag, one of the few luxuries I'd allowed myself. Must be nice having all that disposable income with no responsibilities. No responsibilities. As if the homework I'd supervised, the science projects I'd built, the tantrums I'd managed, the meals I'd cooked, the holidays I'd single-handedly orchestrated, none of that counted as responsibility. It only counted when you could claim the children on your taxes. Apparently. The worst part was how they'd weaponized Dad's memory. He'd been the only one who'd seen me as more than the family utility. My brilliant Claire. He'd call me, bragging to his friends about my career achievements. He'd encouraged my independence, celebrated my ambitions. When he died, it felt like my advocate disappeared, and in my grief, I'd tried to honor him by taking care of everyone he'd left behind, but somewhere along the way, his "take care of your mother" became "sacrifice everything for your mother's convenience." His "be there for your siblings" morphed into "be your sibling's unpaid servant." They'd taken my love for him and twisted it into chains. I remembered last Easter when I'd finally tried to set a boundary. I'd told them I couldn't watch the kids because I had plans with friends. The guilt campaign had been swift and brutal. Mom developed a mysterious dizzy spell. Rebecca reminded me how Dad would be so disappointed to see me putting friends above family. Ethan just stopped speaking to me entirely until I caved. The friends I'd had plans with stopped inviting me after that. "You're never actually available anyway," one had said, not unkindly, but truthfully. The realization that hurt most came as I sat there, engine running, heat blowing against the December chill. They didn't even like me. They needed me, used me, depended on me, but they didn't like me. I was a service they'd grown accustomed to, like Amazon Prime, convenient, reliable, and only noticed when unavailable. In their minds, I existed solely in relation to their needs, not Claire, the person with dreams, desires, and a breaking heart. Just Claire the babysitter, Claire the ATM, Claire the one without a real family, so she might as well serve theirs. My phone buzzed. A text from Ryan confirmed our dinner reservations for Christmas Eve. The sunset from the restaurant is supposed to be incredible. Can't wait to see your face when you experience Santa Fe for the first time. For the first time in 7 years, I was going to choose myself, but this time, I wouldn't just disappear. I'd give them exactly what they claimed to want, a Christmas where everything was handled, where they didn't have to worry about anything. They just didn't know yet that handled didn't mean by Claire. The revenge taking shape in my mind wasn't about hurting them, it was about showing them, with crystalline clarity, exactly what they'd taken for granted. They thought I was support staff. Well, support staff could be replaced, automated, outsourced. Let them have their perfect Christmas, just without me. Back in my apartment, I poured myself a glass of the expensive Malbec I'd been saving for a special occasion. This seemed to qualify. My hands had stopped shaking, replaced by an eerie calm that felt like power. I called Melissa first. She'd been watching this slow-motion exploitation for years, biting her tongue at my request. They said what? Her voice could have shattered glass. I heard her husband Jake in the background asking if everything was okay. "Claire, I'm coming over." 20 minutes later, she was on my couch, her usually perfect blonde hair thrown in a messy bun, still in her hospital scrubs from her nursing shift. She'd brought reinforcements, a bottle of champagne and her trademark fury on my behalf. I've been waiting for this moment for 7 fucking years, she said, raising her glass. The moment you finally see them for what they are, parasites, Claire, emotional, financial, and spiritual parasites. That's my family you're talking about, I said, but the protest was weak. No, honey, family doesn't do what they're doing to you. Family doesn't sit around plotting how to manipulate you out of your first vacation in 3 years. Family doesn't laugh about you being support staff. She pulled out her phone. Remember when you missed my wedding rehearsal dinner because Rebecca had a crisis? The crisis was that Brad wanted to go to his fantasy football draft. You missed one of the most important nights of my life to babysit so your brother-in-law could drink beer with his buddies. The truth of it stung. I apologized for that. I'm not bringing it up to hurt you. I'm bringing it up because you need to understand the pattern. They've trained you, Claire, like a circus animal. They blow the whistle, and you perform. My phone rang. Ryan's face appeared on the screen. Melissa grabbed it before I could decline the call. She's here, she said by way of greeting, and she needs you to hear what just happened. She put him on speaker and made me repeat the whole overheard conversation. The silence on the other end stretched so long I thought we'd lost connection. Then, I'll be there in 15 minutes. You don't have to. Claire. His voice was gentle but firm. Yes, I do. When Ryan arrived, he brought Thai food and his laptop. If they want to play strategic games, he said, setting up at my dining table, then we need a better strategy. What's the end goal here? To go on our trip, I said automatically. Bigger than that, Melissa interjected. The goal is to reset the entire dynamic, to show them that Claire isn't their default solution anymore. Ryan pulled up a document and started typing. Okay, let's think about this logically. What do they expect to happen? I knew the playbook by heart. Mom will start feeling sick on the 22nd. Rebecca will have an emergency with Brad's family. Ethan's babysitter will cancel. They'll all converge on me December 23rd, expecting me to cancel my trip and handle Christmas. And what do they need handled? Specifically, Ryan asked. I started listing the meal for 15 people, decorations, present wrapping, entertainment for 5 kids, Christmas morning breakfast, basically, everything that makes Christmas Christmas for them. Perfect. Ryan's smile was almost dangerous. So we make sure all of that happens. Just not the way they expect. Melissa was already on her phone. My cousin runs a catering company, high-end, expensive, books out months in advance, but she owes me a favor from when I covered her shifts during nursing school. I can handle the kids' entertainment, Ryan offered. I know a company that does holiday parties, costumed characters, games, the works. They'll be so exhausted they'll sleep through the night. This is going to cost a fortune, I protested. How much have you spent on their Christmases over the years? Melissa countered. Besides, consider it an investment in your freedom. We worked until 2 a.m. planning every detail. Catering that would arrive precisely when expected, but with instructions that made it clear a generous benefactor had arranged everything in advance. A cleaning service scheduled for December 26th. Even a babysitting service on standby, though we doubted they'd think to use it. The genius part, Ryan said, admiring our plan, is that you're giving them exactly what they want, a handled Christmas. They just won't realize until it's too late that handled doesn't mean by you. There's one more thing, I said, an idea forming. The decorations. The family heirloom decorations that I store in my apartment because Mom doesn't have room. Melissa's grin was wicked. The ones that make their Christmas tree special, the ones your grandmother made. Those are mine, I said, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. Dad gave them to me specifically. I've just been loaning them out. Time for the loan to end. Ryan reached across the table and took my hand. You sure about this? Once you do this, there's no going back to how things were. I thought about all the years of servitude disguised as love, all the times I'd been made to feel guilty for wanting my own life, all the laughter I'd overheard that morning about my pathetic, single existence. Good, I said. I don't want to go back. I want to go forward, to Santa Fe, to whatever comes after, to a life where I'm not anyone's support staff. Melissa raised her glass again. To the revenge of Claire Morrison. May it be swift, complete, and absolutely devastating. We clinked glasses, and I felt something shift inside me, the last vestige of guilt crumbling away. They'd pushed too far this time. They'd revealed their true feelings, and now they were about to learn what happened when you took someone's kindness for granted. The best part, they'd never see it coming, because good, reliable, doormat Claire would never do something like this. Would she? The next 3 days required Oscar-worthy performance skills. I attended to family demands with my usual efficiency, but this time, every act of service was strategic. When Mom called about finalizing Christmas menu details, I took meticulous notes while secretly forwarding everything to Melissa's cousin at the catering company. The traditional honey-glazed ham, Mom's famous cornbread stuffing recipe, which was actually mine, the green bean casserole that Rebecca pretended to make but always expected me to handle. Every single detail was documented and arranged. "You seem cheerful," Mom observed suspiciously during our coffee meeting on December 21st. "That trip must really be exciting." "Oh, you know me," I said, stirring my latte with practiced calm. "I'm just happy when everyone else is happy. Besides, family comes first, right?" The way her shoulders relaxed told me everything. She bought it completely. Good. Dependable Claire would cave when the time came. She always did. That evening, I went through my apartment methodically, collecting every family heirloom I'd been storing. The hand-blown glass ornaments from Grandma Rose, each one irreplaceable. The vintage tree topper, an angel Dad had given me specifically because I'd loved it as a child. The stockings I'd spent hours embroidering for each family member. The wooden nativity set Great-Grandpa had carved. All of it went into carefully labeled boxes that I placed in my bedroom closet, far from their usual accessible spot by the door. Ryan helped me with the technology aspect. "We need to make sure they can't claim they couldn't reach you," he said, setting up an automatic email response and voicemail message. Both would activate on December 23rd, stating I was traveling with limited cell service but had ensured all Christmas arrangements were handled in my absence. The catering order was a masterpiece of malicious compliance. Everything they'd requested, plus upgraded options they'd never spring for themselves, the organic, free-range turkey alongside the ham, the expensive wine pairings, the artisanal dessert selection. The bill would be astronomical, but I'd prepaid it with savage satisfaction. The invoice, however, would be delivered with the food, making it clear exactly how much their handled Christmas actually cost. I scheduled the entertainment for the kids strategically. The company would arrive at 2 p.m. on Christmas Eve, right when the adults typically started their drinking and expected me to manage the chaos. The performers would run games, crafts, and activities for exactly 3 hours, long enough for the adults to realize how exhausting child entertainment actually was when the break ended. The cleaning service was booked for December 26th at 8 a.m. sharp. They'd arrive to find the inevitable disaster zone, armed with my detailed instructions about Mom's specific requirements for how things should be cleaned. I'd even included her favorite lecture about the right way to vacuum her Persian rugs. "You're forgetting something," Melissa pointed out as we reviewed the plan one final time. "They're going to blow up your phone. The guilt trips will be nuclear." "That's why I'm leaving my regular phone here," I said, pulling out a new device. "This is my travel phone. Only you and Ryan have the number. My work has it for actual emergencies. Everyone else gets silence." The pièce de résistance was the letter I wrote and scheduled to be delivered with the catering on Christmas Eve. I went through 17 drafts before it was perfect. Dear family, by the time you read this, I'll be in Santa Fe, finally taking the vacation I've earned and deserve. I overheard your planning session on December 20th. Every word of it. I know about the fake illnesses, the manufactured emergencies, the belief that I'm nothing more than support staff for your real families. You're right about one thing: I don't have children or a husband. What I do have is a life, a career, dreams, and value beyond my utility to you. I've spent 7 years believing that sacrificing my happiness for yours was what Dad would have wanted. I realize now he would be horrified to see how you've treated me. Everything you need for Christmas has been arranged and paid for. The food will arrive on schedule. The children will be entertained. The house will be cleaned. Consider it my final gift, proof that these services were always available to you. You just preferred to use me because I was free. The family heirlooms are no longer available for loan. They were left to me, and I'll be keeping them to create my own traditions with people who value me as more than convenient help. I love you all, but I love myself too. It's time I acted like it. Claire P.S. Mom, Dad's last words to me weren't to take care of you. They were to live my life fully. I'm finally honoring that. I sealed the letter, addressed it to Mom, and arranged for it to be delivered with the catering at precisely noon on Christmas Eve. By then, I'd be 30,000 feet in the air, flying towards a different kind of Christmas, one where I was a guest, not the help. Looking around my apartment the night of December 22nd, I felt lighter than I had in years. Tomorrow, the family manipulation would begin in earnest. Mom would develop her mysterious symptoms. Rebecca would call in tears. Ethan would show up looking desperate. And I would already be gone. The brilliant part was that I'd follow their script perfectly, just 12 hours ahead of schedule. When they arrived to guilt me into compliance, they'd find an empty apartment and a plan already in motion. No confrontation, no chance for them to wear me down, no opportunity for the emotional manipulation they'd perfected over the years. "You ready for this?" Ryan asked, holding my hand as we did a final walkthrough. "I've been ready for 7 years," I said. I just didn't know it until now. Tomorrow, while they scrambled to understand what had happened, I'd be watching the sunset over the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, and for the first time since Dad died, I'd be spending Christmas exactly where I wanted to be, far from the people who claimed to love me but only saw me as a service to be exploited. The trap was set. Now, all I had to do was disappear. December 23rd arrived with the kind of pristine Portland morning that made the city look like a snow globe, even without snow. I was up at 4:30 a.m., my bags already in Ryan's car from the night before. The apartment was immaculate, every surface cleaned, every dish washed. Let them find no evidence of chaos or rushed departure. This was calculated, not panicked. I'd dressed carefully my new traveling outfit, the soft cashmere sweater Ryan had given me, my hair styled, makeup perfect. If anyone saw me leaving, they'd see someone heading to something wonderful, not someone fleeing. At 5:45 a.m., my phone started its predictable symphony. "Mom first." A text. "Feeling a bit dizzy this morning. Might need you to come by later." I screenshot it for posterity and said nothing. By 6:15 a.m., Rebecca joined in. "Brad's parents just called. They're coming after all crisis mode, need to talk ASAP." Ryan and I were at the airport by 6:30 a.m., well ahead of our 9 a.m. flight. As we sat in the first-class lounge, another first for me, my phone became increasingly frantic. 7 a.m. "Mom, the dizziness is worse. Might need to go to the ER. 7:20 a.m. "Ethan, babysitter just canceled. Stephanie's having a meltdown. Can you take the kids for a few hours? 7:45 Rebecca, where are you? Mom says you're not answering. This is an emergency." I sipped my complimentary mimosa and watched the planes taxi outside the window. Ryan was reviewing his photography equipment, occasionally squeezing my hand when he noticed me checking my phone. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm perfect," I said, and meant it. At 8:30 a.m., as we boarded, the calls started. Mom, Rebecca, Ethan, even Brad and Stephanie. I declined each one, imagining their growing panic. They were probably converging on my apartment right now, spare key in hand, ready to stage their intervention. I turned off my old phone completely and slipped it into my carry-on. The new phone stayed on, showing only a text from Melissa. Catering confirmed, letter ready for delivery, Godspeed, Warrior. As the plane lifted off at 9:10 a.m., I felt something I hadn't experienced in 7 years. Complete, untethered freedom. Below us, Portland shrank to a grid of streets and buildings, my family's manipulation becoming as small as the city looked from above. Ryan had the window seat but leaned back so I could see out. "Look," he said, pointing at Mount Hood in the distance. "You can actually see the summit today." It felt like a metaphor, finally seeing clearly what had been obscured by fog for so long. The flight attendant brought us champagne and warm nuts. I'd never flown first class before, always saving money, always thinking practically. The seat fully reclined. The blanket was actual cashmere. The meal was served on real plates with real silverware. "This is how you should always travel," Ryan said, taking photos of me with my champagne. "Like someone who values herself." I thought about what was happening in Portland right now. They'd have discovered my absence. The panic would be escalating. Mom's fake illness would be forgotten in the face of real crisis. Who would cook? Who would clean? Who would manage the children? The letter wouldn't arrive until noon tomorrow, so they'd spend the next 28 hours in complete confusion. My new phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer, my assistant. "Client emergency with the Thompson event. Need your input." I handled it in 3 minutes, proving that real emergencies could be managed efficiently. Unlike the manufactured crises my family specialized in, we landed in Albuquerque at 1:45 p.m. Mountain Time, the high desert air crisp and thin. The drive to Santa Fe was gorgeous. Endless sky, snow-dusted mountains, a landscape that looked nothing like the Pacific Northwest. Each mile felt like shedding another layer of obligation. "You're smiling," Ryan observed as we drove. "I'm imagining them trying to figure out the coffee machine," I admitted. "Mom hasn't made her own coffee in 3 years. She doesn't even know I switched her to decaf 6 months ago when her doctor recommended it." We checked into La Posada at 3:30 p.m. The room was everything the photos had promised. Kiva fireplace, private patio, hand-woven textiles, and a view of the mountains that made my chest tight with emotion. "No guilt?" Ryan asked, watching me take it all in. I thought about it honestly. No. Anger that it took me this long. Relief that I finally did it. But no guilt. That evening, we walked through the plaza, luminarias lining the paths, the air smelling of piñon fires. Galleries were still open, spilling warm light onto the sidewalks. We ducked into one showing contemporary Native American art, and I bought a small painting, something just for me, for my apartment, that no family member would ever borrow or claim. Dinner was at a tiny restaurant off Canyon Road. As we ate green chili stew and sopapillas, my old phone presumably exploding with messages in my bag, I felt myself becoming someone new, or maybe someone I'd always been, just buried under years of other people's needs. "What do you think they're doing now?" Ryan asked. I checked my watch. 6:45 p.m. in Portland, probably calling hospitals, convinced I'm dead, or they're at my apartment, searching for clues. Tomorrow, when the letter arrives with the catering, they'll understand. Any regrets about the letter? Just that I didn't send it 7 years ago. We walked back to the hotel under a sky scattered with more stars than I'd ever seen in Portland. In 12 hours, my family would receive my message. They'd realize their free labor was gone. Their emotional dumping ground had boundaries. Their support staff had resigned. But tonight, in this ancient city with its art and beauty and Ryan's hand in mine, I wasn't thinking about them at all. For the first time in my adult life, Christmas Eve's Eve was just about me. Tomorrow, while they opened that letter, I'd be hiking in the mountains. While they figured out who would watch the kids, I'd be in galleries. While they finally understood what they'd lost, I'd already be finding what I'd gained. The revolution had begun, and I was 1,000 miles away from the explosion. Christmas Eve in Santa Fe was everything Portland wasn't. Warm despite the December date. Golden with sunset, and absolutely peaceful. Ryan and I stood on the restaurant's terrace at Geronimo, watching the sun paint the mountains in shades of copper and rose. My new phone had stayed blissfully quiet all day, while my old phone, now powered on and set to silent, showed 147 missed calls. "You want to know, don't you?" Ryan asked, nodding toward my bag where the old phone lurked. "I know exactly what happened," I said, taking a sip of wine. The letter arrived at noon with the catering. They read it. They exploded. They're now dealing with the consequences of their assumptions. But curiosity won. At 11:45 p.m., after our incredible dinner and a walk through the snow-dusted plaza, I finally checked the messages while Ryan built a fire in our room's Kiva fireplace. Mom's texts evolved from manipulation to rage to desperation. "How dare you abandon your family on Christmas? Your father would be ashamed. Please, Claire, we need you. I'm sorry for whatever you think you heard. The catering is nice, but we don't know what to do with the children." Rebecca's were accusations. "You selfish bitch! My kids are asking where Aunt Claire is. Brad's parents think we're trashy because dinner is catered. You planned this to humiliate us." Ethan attempted guilt. "Really disappointed in you. Sis. The kids are crying. Hope your vacation is worth destroying Christmas." The voicemails were even better. Stephanie, drunk by 2 p.m., accidentally revealed the truth in one. "She got us good, babe. We played ourselves. Who knew Doormat Claire had a backbone?" But the best message came from an unknown number at 9:23 p.m. It was Mason, my 8-year-old nephew, using someone's phone. "Aunt Claire, the Santa at the party today was awesome. He said you arranged everything so we'd have the best Christmas ever. Mom's mad, but I think you're the real Santa. Love you." At least one person understood. Christmas Day arrived with crystalline perfection. While my family dealt with the aftermath, no decorations since I'd kept the heirlooms. 5 exhausted children after yesterday's entertainment, and the reality of handling their own chaos, Ryan and I hiked the Dale Ball trails. The view from the ridge was endless. High desert stretching toward snow-capped peaks. "Look at you," Ryan said, photographing me against the panoramic backdrop. "You look like yourself for the first time since I've known you." He was right. The woman in his viewfinder wasn't the exhausted event coordinator who'd been everyone's backup plan. She was someone who chose sunrise hikes over Christmas morning chaos, who wore hiking boots instead of an apron, who laughed freely without calculating who might need something from her. That evening, we attended a Christmas concert at the Loretto Chapel. As the choir's voices rose toward the miraculous staircase, my new phone buzzed. Melissa had sent a photo from Portland, my family's Facebook Christmas picture. They'd clearly struggled to stage it without me. The decorations were store-bought and sparse. The children looked cranky. The adults forced smiles that didn't reach their eyes. The caption read, "Family Christmas. Missing some members but making do, making do." After 7 years of me making everything happen, they were making do. The day after Christmas, as we explored Museum Hill, another message came through from Jennifer. "Your mother called the office 15 times. I followed your instructions and told her you were unavailable indefinitely. She said something about you ruining their traditions. I told her perhaps it was time to make new ones." I promoted Jennifer the next day via email. On December 27th, we drove to Bandelier National Monument, climbing ancient ladders to cliff dwellings where ancestral Puebloans had lived 800 years ago, standing in those carved rooms. I thought about leaving places that no longer served you, about building new homes in unexpected landscapes. "Next year," Ryan said, "we could do Japan for Christmas, or Iceland to see the northern lights." Next year, he said it so easily, like we were a future, not just a present. Our last morning in Santa Fe, December 28th, I finally sent one message to the family group chat. "I hope you all had a memorable Christmas." I certainly did. The catering should have covered all dietary needs. The entertainment was highly rated. The cleaning service will have restored order. These services are available year-round. By the way, You just have to pay for them instead of expecting them free from family members you view as support staff. My boundaries are now non-negotiable. I'll see you when I see you. On my terms. Then I left the group chat. The flight home was bittersweet, only in that Santa Fe had been perfect. But I wasn't returning to the old Claire's life. That woman had dissolved somewhere between the plaza and the mountains, between Ryan's laughter and my own rediscovered joy. My apartment looked different when we arrived, not physically, but it felt truly mine for the first time. The spaces where family heirlooms had sat were filled with the art I'd bought in Santa Fe. The refrigerator held food I wanted to eat, not emergency supplies for unexpected babysitting. The calendar on my wall showed upcoming trips, concerts, and gallery openings, not a single family obligation in sight. 3 weeks later, Mom called my new number, obtained from Melissa in a moment of weakness. Her voice was different, smaller. "We need to talk about moving forward," she said. "We can talk?" I agreed. "But moving forward means things have changed permanently. I'm not your backup plan anymore. I'm not free childcare. I'm not the default solution to every problem. I'm your daughter, and if you want me in your life, it'll be as an equal member of the family, not its servant." The silence stretched long before she said, "I understand." She didn't. Not yet. But she would. They all would. Because I'd finally learned the most important lesson of my 34 years. Sometimes the best gift you can give yourself is the absence of people who don't value your presence. Standing on my balcony that evening, looking out at Mount Hood in the distance, I raised a glass of good wine to the woman I'd been, the one who'd carried everyone else's burdens for so long. She deserved acknowledgement for her service, but she also deserved to retire. And so she had, beautifully, completely, and without a single regret. The reliable daughter was gone. In her place stood just Claire, traveler, professional, partner to someone who saw her worth, and finally, free. Thank you so much for listening to my story today. I'd love to hear where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect with fellow listeners around the world. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing to the channel and sharing your own thoughts about family boundaries and standing up for yourself. Your experiences matter, and our community grows stronger when we share them together.